Well, hi, everybody. If you're an older fan like me, you recognize that greeting. That was Bob Murphy for 100 years. I'm Charlie Hangley. I'm hosting the Mets 360 podcast today, substituting for Brian Joura. And I have one guest. And hey, look who it is. It's Brian Joura. Brian, welcome to your own podcast. How are you?
Oh, thanks so much, Charlie. It's glad to be welcomed instead of the welcomer. So I'm excited to do this.
I'm excited to do this too. I've never hosted before other than a cocktail party. So this is going to be pretty good for me.
Well, feel free to
Um,
serve me a drink.
There you go. One of my birds just flew in here and landed on my shoulder. I was not expecting
It's
that.
Rally
But anyway,
Parakeet. Remember Rally Parakeet from 2015?
yeah, it's the cockatiel.
Rally
Anyway,
Cockatiel. There you
there
go. Um, Parakeet 2.0. We've upgraded.
you go. Let's get started. You might notice that I'm sounding a little bit hoarse tonight uh, because I happened to be at Citi Field last night to watch Nolan McLean utterly dismantle the Philadelphia Phillies in a huge spot, completing the sweep, 6-0 whitewash. Was just a wonder. Phenomenal. The man, through 7 innings, had only thrown 76 pitches. And he went 8, and the only reason he didn't go 9 is because he gave up 2 hits in the ninth and elevated his pitch count up to 95 pitches by that point. Um, so Carlos Mendoza rightly so said that's enough. And by that point, it was 6-0, and it allayed all my fears about who was going to close if it was a close game. But 76 pitches through 7 innings. My question to you, Brian, is Nolan McLean the real deal?
Well, it was even better than that, Charlie. It was 55 through 6. It was a 21 pitch seventh inning, and then I forget what it was in the eighth. It was more than that. So he was absolutely unhittable through the first 6 innings, and then he started to fade somewhat, which was certainly understandable. But as Mets fans, we're thrilled that he was able to go 8 and give the bullpen a rest, especially after the bullpen worked so hard the previous 2 days. But anyway, is he for real? God, I hope so. I hope so. It makes it so much easier if he has. It's hard to tell from 3 starts, but the most encouraging thing is he throws strikes. He's got, I think, 6 different pitches that he throws. I don't care how many pitches he throws. I care that he throws strikes. So if he throws strikes, yes, he's for real. I mean, I think there was some question from him in the minors this year if he could consistently throw strikes. But here in the majors, he's thrown strikes. I think it's 20 innings and 4 walks. I love it. Bring it on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I saw a stat today that his first 3 starts. Well, first of all, everyone, as they were making a big deal out of it last night, he's the first Met to win his first 3 career starts
Isn't that incredible?
in a row. But in those 3 starts, he's got better stats than 3 guys named DeGrom, Gooden, and Seaver. So how that's what that bodes for the future, who can say? But it's certainly tantalizing.
You are the company that you keep. And got to say, I love that company.
Well, speaking of company, I don't. That's a terrible transition because I don't know what this has to do with anything. But that brings me to my next question. Um, Mark Vientos. Uh, I guess young Mets. There's my connective tissue there. It's the Mets on the younger side. He has had an amazing turnaround his last 12 games. Uh, is do you think you and I, the last time I was on the podcast, we, I believe your crazy prediction was that Vientos would turn it around, or was that mine? I don't remember.
I think it might have been yours.
That Vientos would turn it around and break 20 homers this year. Now that's not looking so much crazy as prophetic. Do you concur that Vientos has in fact turned it around, and will he be able to carry this hot stretch through the end of the year and into the postseason?
Well, I'm a big fan of power. And in the last 10 games, not McNeil, Vientos. Vientos has 6 home runs in his last 10 games. So that's a pretty awesome pace. I think you can fake your way through the hits falling in to a nice OPS and certainly a fantastic batting average, but you can't fake your way to 6 homers in 10 games. So yes, I do think he's back, and there's no reason to think he won't be a feared hitter in the postseason. Not somebody that the opposing teams are going to want to see to come to the plate. So I'm buying whatever it is that Vientos is selling.
Great. If it's true, that's just so much the better. So much the better. And that actually does lead me into um, another question that I had. The team as a whole in the past, again, 10 or 12 games has had a fairly complete offensive turnaround, um, especially with runners in scoring position. It's probably even longer than that. I believe it goes back to the beginning of this month. Not sure what it slips my mind what the actual numbers are. But last night, something like 8 of 14 with runners in scoring position, something like that. Some ungodly high batting average with RSP. Is this, something like that? My question was, is that sustainable? Something like that, of course, is not. But again, it's to the same question with Vientos. Is this something that can continue deep into October?
Well, you look at what they've done the past 2 nights against the Phillies. One night, I think it was something like 11 for 18 with runners in scoring position, and the other it was 5 for 10. So it's absolutely wonderful. The struggles that the team had with runners in scoring position harken back to 2016, when for at least 4.5, if not 5 months, they were neck and neck with the expansion Padres as the worst team in baseball for runners in scoring position. And then they turned it on in September, probably the end of August too, and they were phenomenal. They certainly could keep it up for a month back in 2016, so I see no reason why they can't continue to have outstanding results, even if not to the degree that they've had in the past 2 days. You look at where they are league average wise, and the league average for runners in scoring position, the OPS is 744, and the Mets were terrible in this for most of the year. And then you find now that they're in the top half of baseball. They've got a 781, which is remarkable considering all those times we saw 1 for 11 and 3 for 14 in those splits earlier in the season. So the fact that they've already been able to get up to a 781 OPS is remarkable. So I do think that something along an 800 OPS is within reach for the remainder of the season. They don't have to be the best or the top 3 or whatever. They just need not to be hanging out in the bottom half of the league. They get enough opportunities. They just need to convert at a somewhat reasonable rate.
Well, I totally agree with that. And to that point, last night's a prime example. They put 6 runs on the board with 1 homer and 2 doubles and about 135 singles.
Yeah, the homer was a 2-run homer, and the double led to a run. So, we have people, both writers and readers at the site, who just get all giddy whenever they score a run by a single. Ooh, small ball, and you just, what was the old Sprockets thing on Saturday Night Live? Excited like a little girl. So I don't know. I like to make fun of the small ball advocates. I'm a power fan, like I mentioned earlier. So the fact that they're able to do the damage that they were with just a 2-run homer last night, certainly bodes well. And I feel like the gods owed us this. So it's not going to continue at the amazing pace of the past 2 nights, but it doesn't have to. It just has to not be dreadful.
Right. Right. Agreed. Um, well, and I knew it was going to be that kind of, sitting in the stands, I knew it was going to be that kind of night when Hayden Singer, of all people, bunts for a base hit in the first inning.
We
Or third inning, whenever it was.
watching that play out. It was like, oh well, he's bunting. All right, well that makes sense. Nito got pretty good at bunting, so Singer might as well. And then Walker is a pretty good fielder, and it got by him. And it was
Yeah,
just like, oh, that's a good omen.
just hard enough to get it to tick off his glove. So, um, catchers. Oh, God, I love these natural segues. Wonderful. Um, Francisco Alvarez. He's back in Syracuse. He's rehabbing his uh, whatever it is on his right hand, throwing hand. Um, whatever he strained, running out that double. Um, but then he took a pitch in his second or third at bat last night in his first rehab game off his pinky, which came to light today that pinky is actually fractured, and it's on his receiving hand. Um, Now he's very optimistic. This afternoon, he said, he's gonna try and play through that as well. Maybe be on the shelf 2 or 3 days, let the swelling come down. Um, but I mean, I think this might be the only and ever time that this comparison will ever be made. Is he like Mickey Mantle? Is he going to be constantly injured for the rest of his career? Why does the injury bug seem to follow Francisco Alvarez like a cocker spaniel?
That's the $64 million question, I guess. We wish we could predict how injuries were going to occur and who were the people it was most likely to occur. And then maybe you could do, I don't know, prehab or something. I mean, I don't know what you could do to prevent these various hand injuries, because I think that he had one before the two that he had this year. I think he hurt himself running the bases last year or the year before. But um, I don't know. It seems to me to be something that I would place in the luck variety, and in this case, bad luck. Will it continue to follow him? Catcher's a dangerous position. I mean, how many times have we seen either Alvarez or Torrens get hit this year? And even the announcers are laughing at it, just like, well, Torrens only got hit 3 times in this game. So it's a rough and dangerous position. So there are going to be these bruises, these aches and pains, just the nature of the beast, I guess. Hopefully, we can keep it so that it's not anything major. And my wife is getting ready to have surgery, and the running joke is it's only minor surgery when it's on somebody else. But hopefully we can keep away from certainly his legs, and hopefully the hands can recover somewhat. When I was in college, I used to jam my fingers all the time playing basketball, and then one day we're tailgating for a football game, and I really had a number done on my finger, and I ended up fracturing it. Did I go to the hospital? No, I just took some tape and wrapped it up like I always did. And to this day, that knuckle stands out. So, and it hurt like hell. And I'm a wimp. I don't have a high pain tolerance, but I'm just trying to imagine Alvarez now after the news came down that he fractured a finger on his catching hand. I mean, the other injury was on his throwing hand, and you can imagine throwing the ball like keeping one finger off. Less than ideal, but it could be done. But I'm curious as to how you catch with a fractured finger.
Yeah. I don't know how you get a mitt on
Yeah, exactly,
with a fractured
exactly.
finger.
So, they have a whole lot of medicine available to professional athletes that they don't have to schmoes like you and me. So maybe we can even go back to the 70s in North Dallas 40 and shoot them up with something which may or may not be legal, and keep the pain down a little. But Francisco, it was heartbreaking that you got hurt when you did, and all of us Met fans are pulling for you to come back and be able to fight through this.
Indeed, indeed. Hoping for a quick comeback for him. And speaking of quick and quick trips to the majors, the Phenom, Junior, the Canadian Cannon, Jonah Tong is going to make his major league debut against the Fish, against the Miami Marlins tomorrow night at Citi Field in front of probably 45,000 howling Met fans. What do you think we can expect from Jonah Tong?
All right, before I answer this, I have to ask you a question. You were in attendance for McLean's last start a couple of days ago. Are you going to
Last
be
night?
there? Are you going to be there for Tom?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're killing me.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Again, it was
Go
just
scalp a
last night.
ticket.
So
Go scalp a ticket. You owe it. It's your civic duty.
we mentioned my wife before. Yeah, no, that's not happening.
Well, I won't be there either. But I think I have a little more excuse being 13 states away.
That would explain it. Yeah.
But anyway, we got so spoiled by seeing what McLean did, and obviously the last two starts have been better than the first. But the first start was pretty good too. He went 5 1/3 innings. I would love it if Tong was able to go 5 1/3 innings. I think that you have to keep your expectations in check. We see what McLean does, and it's like, oh, Tom's even better. He's going to do better. Maybe, but let's not bet the mortgage on it. So I would love it if Tom was able to come up, not be intimidated by the moment, and maybe do something between what Blade Tidwell did in his first start earlier this year and what McLean did in his first start. I think Tidwell went 3 1/3 or 4 1/3, and McLean went 5 1/3. So if he can go 4 plus and keep us in the game, I think that would be a good start.
Yeah. I can totally picture playing, say, a Matt Harvey to Nolan McLean's Jacob deGrom, or playing a Jerry Kuzman to Nolan McLean's Tom Seaver.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between what the duo will do in the long term versus what they do in the immediate. Certainly, McLean seems like he's ready to pick up that mantle. Will Tong do the same? As a Met fan, you sure hope so. But again, I think you got to be realistic in your expectations. I mean, we've seen something phenomenal here when the first three starts with McLean, and that can't be your baseline expectation for every other pitcher who gets called up.
No, I agree. But the mind does. It is tantalizing to think maybe both of them actually getting a start in a wild card series or NLDS or here's hoping NLCS.
I have not seen him actually pitch. I've seen video of him, and the windup has got to be a concern. If you haven't seen it, most pitchers throw somewhat 3/4. Maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but Tong is straight over the top.
Yeah.
And if you remember Tim Lincecum, I think that's
exactly that's why I called him the Freak Junior, because
that's the comp that's often thrown out. And Lincecum was absolutely fabulous. So there's no doubt that it can work. But the guy won what, 2 Cy Young awards, or certainly was in the running for 2 different Cy Young awards if he didn't win them. And again, that can't be your baseline expectation. But God, I'm gonna be watching, and that's are going to be the types of results that I'm rooting for.
Yeah. I'm thinking about him facing the Dodgers, and well, first of all, 2 rookies that these other playoff teams won't have seen. I mean, except for Philadelphia, if the Mets end up facing them again in one of the early rounds. But just send them right to school, because I think that's part of the The recipe for McLean's success thus far is unfamiliarity. People haven't seen him yet. They don't have a book. It's 3 starts against 3 different clubs.
I tell you what, you can see him 5 times, but if he has 6 pitches and throws 4 of them for strikes on any given night, I don't care how many times you saw him, you're not going to hit him.
Right, right. You can know what's coming. He could be tipping and you still can't hit him. Unlike Ryan Hangley, but that's a question. Will be coming up shortly.
Transitions,
Yes,
Charlie.
transitions. All right, so going from pitching to defense, which many will argue do go hand in hand, and I can't really dissuade anybody from that kind of argument. Sometimes good pitching is good defense, and vice versa. So hello.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries. Defense. They've been winning as they've swept.
Whoop, I've
This
lost you.
past week.
There you are. Couldn't hear you for a second.
Oh, sorry. As they've been winning over the past, their defense has looked a lot better than it has basically all year since the halcyon days of April and May and early June, first half of June, anyway. Is their defense tight enough for a sustained playoff run, do you think?
All right, so there's this old saying where if somebody makes a great defensive play, the announcer inevitably says some version of, how often do we see a guy make a great defensive play and then lead off the next inning? And the answer to that is 1 in 9. Because it's remarkable what gets counted as a great defensive play, if it just happens to be that the guy comes up first in the next inning. But in reality, it's just 1 in 9. And that 1 in 9 number, that's my concern about the club's defense. And the one is, and I'm sorry to say something bad about the guy that everybody loves, is Pete Alonso, because he cannot throw consistently. And we've already seen his throw injure one person, and then he threw another high one in the Philadelphia series, and it's like,
yes,
holding my breath. It's like, oh dear God, don't do it again.
right.
So you and I certainly saw this guy play a lot, and I'm not sure if the listeners will remember, but there were 2 first basemen in the 1970s, and one of them couldn't throw, and one of them couldn't run. And the one who couldn't throw was Steve Garvey. Garvey came up as a third baseman, and because he couldn't throw, they moved him to first. And the other was Bill Buckner, who was an outfielder and then hurt his knee, I think, and then they moved him to first. So Buckner, he wasn't going to run to the bag. He was going to throw it, and by God, you needed to be there. But he made good throws. And the flip side of that was Garvey. And if the ball was hit to Garvey, he was going to run it to first if he absolutely could. And I want Alonso to be Steve Garvey. And in the game chatters, I've started to call him No Throw Pete, because I don't want his throws to either decide a game or to hurt another pitcher.
Right. Well, we've already seen him pull a Lucas Duda with a throw to the plate.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess I'm willing to cut someone slack for a throw that goes, 90 feet or so, rather than a throw that goes 5 feet. And, you would like a professional athlete to be able to make a somewhat accurate throw to 90 feet, but dear God, they should be able to make a throw, on a regular 3-1 type of play.
Right. And throw it, like you said, 5 feet and not have to go 10 feet in the air.
Exactly. God. And the thing is, how many years has Keith Hernandez watched Alonso throw? And I know Keith kind of takes a laissez-faire, doesn't put himself into the situation unless asked. But dear God, somebody hook up Alonso and Hernandez and have Keith give him some pointers.
Yeah. And it's funny because even before he was an announcer, I'm going back 1990. Well, I was there, so 1996 it was, and the Mets after having let him wander in the wilderness for a couple of years, brought back Howard Johnson. And Keith, they brought Keith in to coach him because he was making a transition from third base / outfield to first. And they had Keith coaching him.
Yeah,
So this was even before he was an announcer. I only know because I took a jaunt to spring training
I
that
think
year and happened to see him on a back field.
right. I think
That was that's how long ago it was. It was Dallas Green was the manager. That's how long ago.
Todd Steele has even said that Keith gave him some tips when he made the transition across the diamond the first. So it's not like he's morally opposed or anything.
Right, and he says it on the air all the time. So kids watching at home, here's what you do. Well, why can't he do that with the guys in the dugout?
So I think
he doesn't want to step on anybody's toes.
Right, exactly. So I think the Mets have excellent defense at catcher and second base. When somebody besides Vientos is playing third, I think they've got pretty good defense. McNeil is a much better defender at second base than he's given credit for. Tyrone Taylor is very good in center. I think Soto is a hair better than his reputation. I think he's average out there. I don't have any problems with Soto out there. And Nimmo is excellent in everything but throwing. You know, he's not a great thrower. He's gotten better than his throwing. So overall, you know, I'm not worried about the defense. And Pete, you know, if we're gonna criticize him for what he doesn't do well, we need to give him his flowers for what he does do well. And Pete is excellent. He is excellent at scooping balls at first. And
yes.
You know, you probably scoop more balls than you have to throw, especially if you put it in your mind that you're going to run every ball to the bag that you can.
Right, right, and he's very good at laying out for an errant throw too. You know, and keeping his foot on the bag and stretching.
And doing splits. Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what else he's gotten better at? When he first came up, he was lousy at going back on pops. He's gotten very good at that.
Yes.
And I absolutely love it because it reminds me of when I played. Whenever there was a charity, you know, infield pop, I usually played third or short. It was my ball. And I'd yell as loud as I could so that everyone knew I was going to catch it. So the pop fly is hit anywhere on the right side of the infield. By God, Pete is waving his hands and yelling.
Throwing his arms out there.
Yes, exactly. So I always get a chuckle out of that. So Pete has gotten much better on fielding pops, so the ones he has to go back on. That used to be a weakness, and I think that's a strength now. He just can't throw.
And it's funny that you mentioned Soto and Nimmo defensively in the outfield. I don't know if you caught towards the end of the game. It was in the 7th inning, I believe, it was the 8th.
Yep.
Yeah, when twice I forget what his first name is, but the third base coach of the Phillies, his last name is Wathan.
Dusty, I think.
Held up.
Yeah, I've lost you again, Charlie. Well, I can't hear Charlie, so I'm going to pipe in with what he was talking about. In the 8th inning last night, Phillies had runners on first and third and no outs. And the first ball was hit to Juan Soto in right in like medium distance, and certainly could have run, likely would have scored, but there was a chance he was going to get thrown out, so the guy held him. And then the second batter hit the ball to Nimmo in left field. Same kind of distance, probably had a little bit higher chance of scoring, but again, chose not to send him. Didn't want to have the last out at the plate. Understandable. I think the wrong decisions, though, but good for the Mets. All right. Well, Charlie, I still can't hear you.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. So I'm not sure.
Somehow I got muted. I don't know how that happened.
I'm not sure if you caught it, but I talked about the fly balls to Soto and Nimmo last night in the 8th.
I could hear you perfectly. You read my mind because that's where I was going. Mm-hmm. Particularly surprising that they didn't go. All right, I get it. Soto has a very good arm, and he threw a one-hop seed to the plate. So Bohm would have been dead anyway. I think it was Bohm on third. Yeah, microphone Alec, by the way. But I was very surprised that they didn't send him on the ball to Nimmo, because Nimmo's got a noodle arm. Let's face it, he really does.
Well, I used to say that, and then I saw Cedric Mullins throw. So,
true. That's a good
Nimmo
point.
has been upgraded. He's got a weak arm. Mullins has a noodle arm.
Yeah. Excuse me. So I think we're both of a mind on the defense. I think it's going to be enough to. They won't embarrass themselves in a playoff game or a playoff series.
So
unlike my next topic, the bullpen. Besides Edwin Diaz, in the mid stages of the ball game last night when the Mets had a 3-0 lead, and I wasn't sure how long Nolan McLean was. I didn't realize he was going to zip through the Phillies like a John Deere thresher, but I was worried around about the 4th or 5th inning, like, okay, if this is a 1 or 2 run game, or even a 3-run game, who's going to close? Diaz went 2 innings the night before to being a key part of a walk-off win. Who else do you trust? You certainly don't trust Ryan Helsley or Ryan Stanek. And pretty much everybody else had gone the night before, including Brooks Raley, who ended up pitching the 9th inning. So, the idea at the trade deadline was to build a bullpen that would be playoff proof. And it looks to me like they really haven't done that. So is that your biggest worry if the Mets do get into October? Is that the obstacle that's going to keep them from a sustained run?
No, I do not put that as my primary worry. My primary worry is still the starting pitchers being able to go deep enough into games to avoid blowing out the bullpen. And I know you got maybe more off days than you would normally, but still, if Senga and Manaea don't get out of the 4th inning in back-to-back days, I mean, boom, there you go. You're in tough shape. So that's my biggest worry. As far as the bullpen goes, I think there's enough quality arms, and we've seen Helsley go have a very, very rough stretch. But you know what? Almost every relief pitcher out there goes through a stretch of games where they give up runs. Relievers tend to bunch their bad outings together. And through the years, I've noticed this, and it's usually 6 to 12 games where they give up a lot of runs. And I think it's 10 games, might be 11, 10 or 11 games where a Helsley's got an 11.37 ERA. And that's not even counting the 4 unearned runs that he's given up in that stretch. So to me, I view this, I don't think Helsley's tipping his pitches. I think he's just going through that bad stretch that every reliever goes through. And Mets fans have seen this before with a trade deadline acquisition. And I bring this up, and I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. We got him from the Cubs.
I know who. Billy Taylor.
Oh, no. More recent than that. They got him from the Cubs, right-hander, had been with Showalter with the Orioles previously.
Carl Edwards Jr.
Well, he was on that team, but I don't think it was Edwards. Anyway, soon he had great numbers. The Mets got him, and then he went through that bad stretch right after they acquired him. And then in September, he was back to being his normal self. And that's my full expectation for Helsley. I think until he starts putting those good outings together, you've got to get him out of the 8th inning role. I think Rogers has been fine in the 8th inning role. I think Soto can handle it as well, too. So it's not like they don't have options. But in the interim, they need to get him into lower leverage spots to, build his confidence or whatever it is that he may be. But in the long run, 5 weeks from now, when the playoffs come around, my firm expectation is that Helsley's going to be fine.
Okay, well, from your lips to God's ears, as they say. And that you touched on, actually, my next question is there any kind of chance that Senga and Manaea ever find their length again?
A chance? Absolutely. Would I want to bet on it? No, not even with your money. So I'm sorry, that's all I got.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Okay. And Manaea, I think, probably has more of a chance at a recovery, mainly because he has been willing in the past to, I know this is dangerous to say, but he's been willing to tinker with his mechanics. He took off last year when he went to the quote unquote Chris Sale arm slot. So he's not afraid to try something new. Kodai Senga, I think, is locked into what he is and doesn't want to mess with what he's got. I think he's just not physically up to it yet. So I am actually in agreement with you. Can they? But I wouldn't bet on it, at least not before October. We might have to put our money on spring training in March and April.
All right, so I looked it up, and the pitcher I was trying to remember was Michael Givens.
Oh, yeah.
So Michael Givens came over.
M-Y-C-H-A-L. That's right,
yes,
Michael Givens.
Yes. Yeah. So he through the end of July, he had a 2.66 ERA. So he was pitching really well. And then he gets to the Mets, and in his first 11 games, he gives up 11 earned runs and has a 10.61 ERA.
Yeah.
But from that point until the end of the season, give me just 1 second. From that point until the end of the season, Givens had a 0.00 ERA. He just went through the stretch that every reliever goes through. And unfortunately for the Mets, Helsley's going through it now.
I hear you. All right. Well, let's talk now about the fella that's got to manage that bullpen, and maybe some of his choices. What did you think of Carlos Mendoza's, for lack of a better term, leadership during the, June 13th through August 15th, say, what I'd call the crisis period? Do you think? I wrote a piece on Mets 360 months ago that compared him favorably to Gil Hodges, or at least as comparable to Gil Hodges. Do you think he showed that same kind of leadership during the rough patch? Is he looking as good during the lean times as he was during the rough times? What do you think of Carlos Mendoza's leadership? I think during this rough stretch.
I think that leadership is something that is extremely difficult for us as fans, not in the clubhouse every day, to really give an intelligent, informed opinion on. We can look at stuff after the fact, but when you're going through it, for the most part, I think it's beneficial not to be in the clubhouse, because you don't feel beholden to people. But there are things that you miss out on, and this is absolutely one of those cases. Did Mendoza do as good of a job as he could have in that? I don't know. I can't give you a good answer to that question. But I will tell you this, and you and I are the same age. We grew up watching baseball in the 70s. And baseball is a lot different now than it was back then. But it's hard not to be influenced by what you witnessed when you first started paying attention. And the game, the 70s had two dynasties. There was the A's, who won between 72 and 74, and then the Yankees kind of took it up after that. And both of those teams constantly bickered and fought with one another and were successful in the end. So I've never been afraid as a baseball fan of a little conflict with my team and a little shaky ground. And I guess my preference would be for the manager maybe to be a little more demonstrative than Mendoza was. He kept being positive and reinforcing and saying, this is a good team, we're going to hit, we're going to pitch, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But I would have preferred a little theatrics, maybe a little Billy Martin, and maybe that's not what the 21st century manager needs to do. But I know that while I'm watching them go 3-14 and then in another stretch go 2-14, it's like, my God, do the Bull Durham scene where you throw some bats into the shower. I mean, show some passion. And that's probably a blind spot for me. So at the end of the day, Carlos Mendoza kept the team together last year through the 0-5 start and then 10 games under 500 in May. And, what is it now? I think it's they've won 5 of their last 6 and 8 of their last 11. So they've come through the latest bad stretch. They seem to be in a good place. And I think in hindsight, you have to applaud what Mendoza has done from a leadership perspective.
We are on the same page down the line. I really like Mendoza as a manager. I like how he keeps that clubhouse together. Case in point, night before last, when the Mets won the walk-off, and the first thing, Brandon Nimmo got the game-winning hit, and the first thing he said was, hey, look at everybody else who did this stuff. He said, I don't get to do this without all that came before. And I think Mendoza has that kind of mentality into everybody, including the big money guys, like, including Soto and Alonso and, the guys who you would think might be a little more apart and aloof from all that. So I think he's done a good job of knitting all the disparate personalities into a whole. Now, is it going to be seamless? Is it going to, will there be songs written about him come October? Maybe, but that remains to be seen. So
now, the thing that jumps immediately to mind for me hearing you say that is, it's almost like a nature nurture type of, I don't know, conundrum, whatever. But anyway, does Nimmo say what he says because he's been influenced by what Carlos Mendoza has brought to the team in the past 2 years? Or is that just who Brandon Nimmo is as a person? And I wonder about that because back, in the early and middle parts of his Mets managerial career, people were praising Terry Collins for something similar, how he kept the clubhouse together. But you look at the people who were on that team, and it was made up of nothing but team first, non-rock the boat kind of guys. And
you'd have to wonder how much of that came from Collins and how much came from David Wright.
Well, I'd say 0 of it came from Collins, and after the hit piece that Mark Carrig did on him when he was getting ready to leave, when he blew the myth of Collins being this great manager, motivator, whatever, out of the water. I think it was all about having guys like Curtis Granderson and David Wright. I think that was much more. I think we're maybe too early in the tenure to know for sure one way or the other on Mendoza. Maybe he is. He certainly conducts himself well in the post games, and he's very steady and consistent with his messaging. But that's about the extent of what I can contribute.
Well, and here's the other thing. Here's what struck me. Even during, when the Mets were going great guns early this season, again up to June 12th, when they did lose a game, there were people basically lining up to say, "Oh no, hey, it was my fault. Oh no, I got to make that play. No excuse. I got to do that." We heard Brett Beatty do that at one point because he threw home when he should have thrown to first, and the play was missed. He said, "That's just a play I can't make. I got to wear that." So what I've seen is a whole bunch of guys lining up to wear that.
And I would say that when your clubhouse has Alonso, who's been there since 2019, when it has Lindor, who's been there since 2021, and it has Nimmo, who's been there since I think it was 2017. No, he came up in 16, I think. 16. Anyway, even longer than Alonso. So you've got their 3 established leaders have all been there for an extended period of time, and those are all team first players. I don't think you can say a bad thing about the other three. Maybe Lindor his first year with the Mets when he was kind of feeling things out, but certainly since 2022, those are three team first players, and I think they've got to receive a large part of the credit for that.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so we're winding down here. I see by the old clock on the wall. We are at our favorite part of the Mets 360 podcast. It's crazy prediction time.
Woo!
I knew you were going to say that. So, you want to go first or you want me to?
Typically the host goes first, so hit me with yours.
Host prerogative. Okay. Mine, the Mets are going to go to the World Series. That's my crazy prediction.
I would have to say that given the question marks around their pitching, that I don't think it's bat guano crazy, but I do think that it's crazy. I think that it probably has a low single digit chance of happening. So I would go ahead and even though that's what I'm rooting for, that's what I'll be pulling for each night in the game chatters. I have to give you a crazy on that one.
Well, not according to Fangraphs. They don't have low single digits. They have high single digits. They say they have 8.0 as of this morning to win the World Series.
Really?
Yep.
That I'm very surprised about that because I think that
third in the National League, third behind the Dodgers, the Brewers, third behind the Dodgers and Brewers, and just ahead of the Phillies.
Yeah, well, my hope is that they don't face the Padres. I think that if they don't face the Padres, they've got a chance. But there's something about Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish gets lit up by every other team around, but he dominates the Mets. So he's like the one guy that I'm scared of. At least there's no Joe Musgrove this time around. So maybe they can even beat the Padres. But
that's my crazy prediction. They are going to go to the World Series.
I looked a couple of days ago at Baseball Reference because that was the site I happened to be on, not because I think it's better. But I thought that Baseball Reference was not as bullish as what you tell me Fangraphs that was at today. So that makes me feel good. I'm pleased. All right, you ready for mine?
Go for it, man.
All right, now we touched base on this a little bit, and I had to soft step it a little bit because I didn't want to shoot my own crazy prediction. But we were talking about the need for Sean Manaea to go deeper in his starts, and my crazy prediction was that Manaea, who hasn't gone more than 5 2/3 innings in any start since he's returned. I think that's 9 starts now, and I think he only did 5-2 once. My crazy prediction is he's going to complete 7 innings in his next start.
I don't think that's particularly crazy. That's why I sort of posed that question the way I did, because I think, it's 9 starts, which is kind of a lot. It's getting to the semi-large sample area. But I think he needed that much time to knock the rust off. So I'm going to say that's not terribly crazy. I'm there with you on that one.
All right. Well, I think it's crazy, obviously, because I threw it out there as my crazy prediction, predicting a guy to do something that he hasn't done in a calendar year or more. But you do you imitate your cockadoo and do your business on my prediction. I'm not that I'm upset about it or anything.
Not crazy.
The master has spoken.
There you go. So, Brian, thank you very much for being my guest and allowing me to be your host. This was a lot of fun. I've never been the MC before. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. We've had the podcast off and on since, I don't know, 2011, somewhere in that time frame. And this is the first time where I've been the guest. So it was a lot of fun for me too. And the thing is that everyone's like, oh, the guest is the easy part. Someone asks you the questions and you just answer. And maybe that's true, but I do know that hosting is an underrated skill. It's not something that comes naturally. I don't believe. I think it's a little bit like being a straight man in a two-man comedy act. It's easy to be Cher or Marie Osmond when Sonny and Donnie are sitting there feeding you straight lines, but it takes a lot of skill to be able to, like, all right, well, these people are going to crap on me and I'm going to set them up to do it.
Right.
And I think that that's what hosting is. It's your job to make the other person look good, and it's in my opinion it's not easy. So I'm glad I got a break from it. It was fun to be the guest, and except when you stamped on my crazy prediction. That wasn't fun.
Oh well.
I'll get over it.
Well, I want to thank you, Brian, for the opportunity. It was a new thing for me, and I enjoyed it. So thank you very much.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Taryn and I had discussed doing it as well. So I certainly don't expect to go 11 years, or actually 2011, 25, 14 years again before doing it again. So hopefully I get to be a guest again. It was fun for me too.
Terrific.
Any last thoughts?
Let's go Mets.
Excellent. Can't top that.
Oh, wait a minute. One last thought. Be careful of this series.
There's the Marlins
4 games at home with the Marlins.
We own the Marlins.
This is a classic trap.
No.
Classic trap. You got to at least split.
Oh, you got to win 3. You got to win 3.
I think you got to win 3, but if you don't split, because the Marlins take an extraordinary deviant delight in derailing whatever hopes the Mets have.
Oh, you're stuck in
2007. They win a game in June. They win in a walk-off in June. They're dancing around like they just won Game 7.
Well, when you only win 50, 60 games a year, you're allowed to celebrate. I don't begrudge them that. Hey, the Marlins started off the second half very hot, but they've gone back to being the Marlins in the last 15, 20 games. Their second half record is good. It's because of what they did in the very beginning. It's like the flip of the Mets. The Mets' second half record isn't very good because of what they did in the beginning. But balance has been returned to the force, and the Mets are going to walk all over the Marlins pretty much what they've done ever since Brandon Nimmo came along. They're going to beat them up.
Again, from your lips to God's ears. I'm just saying, be careful.
All right. Thanks, Charlie.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
Good night, everyone, and we'll see you again next week.
Good night, folks.